The dust kicked up in small clouds as Elena Martinez stepped off the transport shuttle, her worn boots hitting the red dirt of Kepler Station. The frontier mining colony stretched before her like something from an ancient Earth western, complete with wooden buildings and dirt roads. She pulled her hood lower, covering the distinctive silver streak in her dark hair that marked her as one of the enhanced. 3 years of running had taught her to read places quickly. Kepler Station was the kind of world where questions weren't asked and credits spoke louder than words. Perfect for someone trying to disappear from the Terran Federation's most wanted list. The shuttle pilot, a grizzled man with cybernetic arms, handed down her single bag. "You sure about this place, miss? Ain't nothing here but rocks and trouble." Elena pressed a credit chip into his palm. "Trouble's what I'm good at." As the shuttle lifted off in a whirlwind of dust and engine noise, Elena surveyed her new hiding spot. The main street bustled with miners, traders, and the occasional Federation patrol. Her enhanced hearing picked up conversations from 50 meters away, a gift and curse from her days in the military enhancement program. She needed work, shelter, and, most importantly, invisibility. The Federation's bounty hunters had found her last 3 hiding spots. This time, she'd chosen the most remote corner of human space, where civilization barely had a foothold. The saloon's swinging doors reminded her of old movies her father used to watch. Inside, the atmosphere was thick with smoke and tension. Conversations died as she entered, dozens of eyes sizing up the newcomer. Elena had learned to project confidence even when her enhanced reflexes were screaming warnings. She approached the bar where a heavy-set woman with scarred hands was cleaning glasses. "Looking for work." "What kind of work?" The bartender's voice carried the weight of someone who'd seen everything twice. "The kind that pays well and asks few questions." Before the woman could respond, a commotion erupted near the back tables. 3 men in Federation security uniforms were questioning a young miner, their voices growing louder and more aggressive. Elena's enhanced vision caught the subtle bulge of weapons under their jackets. "Please, I paid my taxes," the miner was saying, his voice shaking. "I got the receipts right here." One of the security men, a tall officer with cold eyes, grabbed the miner's wrist. "Your mining claim's been flagged for irregularities. You're coming with us for questioning." Elena's jaw tightened. She recognized the type, corrupt officials using their badges to shake down honest workers. Her enhanced hearing caught whispered conversations around the room. This wasn't official business. These men were using Federation credentials to run their own protection racket. The young miner looked around desperately, but nobody met his eyes. In frontier towns, people learned to mind their own business. Elena understood the logic, but something deep in her chest wouldn't let her walk away. That's when she noticed him. A man at the corner table was slowly standing up, his hand resting casually on the grip of an old-style revolver at his hip. He was tall and lean, with sun-weathered skin and eyes the color of storm clouds. His hat was pulled low, but she could see the determined set of his jaw. "Gentlemen," his voice carried across the suddenly quiet room, smooth as aged whiskey, "I believe there's been a misunderstanding." The lead security officer turned, his hand moving toward his weapon. "This is Federation business, Cowboy. Walk away." The stranger's smile was cold as winter on a dead world. "Funny thing about Federation business on Kepler Station. According to the Colonial Charter, Federation security has no jurisdiction over mining disputes. That's handled by local law enforcement." Elena's enhanced senses caught the subtle shift in the room's atmosphere. The stranger's heartbeat was steady, his breathing controlled. He wasn't just making noise, he knew what he was doing. "And you are?" The security officer's voice dripped with menace. "Deputy Marshal Jake Connor, appointed by the territorial governor." He pushed back his coat to reveal a star-shaped badge. "And I'm thinking you boys need to find the door." The tension in the room ratcheted up another notch. Elena could smell the fear sweat on the fake security officers, hear the slight tremor in their leader's voice as he processed this unexpected development. "Marshal," the lead man said carefully, "we have proper authorization." "Then, you won't mind showing me your paperwork." Jake's hand never moved from his gun, but his stance shifted slightly. Elena's enhanced combat training recognized the posture of someone ready for violence. The confrontation stretched out like a taut wire. Elena found herself analyzing exit routes and potential cover, old military habits dying hard. She counted 6 other patrons who might be armed, estimated the distance to the back door, catalogued potential weapons within reach. The fake security officers were outgunned and they knew it. After a tense moment that felt like an eternity, their leader jerked his head toward the door. "This isn't over, Marshal." "I expect it is," Jake replied evenly. "And, gentlemen? Next time you want to play dress up, maybe don't use uniforms that are 3 generations out of date." Real Federation security updated their gear last year. The 3 men filed out, their leader shooting a venomous look back at both Jake and the young miner. As the doors swung shut behind them, conversations gradually resumed, but the atmosphere remained charged. Jake tipped his hat to the miner, who stammered out thanks before hurrying away. Then, the marshal's storm-gray eyes found Elena across the room. She felt a chill that had nothing to do with the evening air. Those eyes seemed to look right through her, as if he could see past her hood and into her secrets. For a moment, she wondered if her cover was already blown. Instead, he simply nodded to her, a gesture of acknowledgement between strangers, before settling back at his table. Elena turned back to the bartender, who had watched the entire exchange with professional interest. "Still looking for work," she said quietly. The woman studied her for a long moment. "Might have something. Name's Betty. I run this place and half a dozen others. Could use someone with steady nerves for security work." "What kind of security?" "The kind where people like those 3 fake badges don't bother my customers." Betty's scarred hands never stopped moving, cleaning glasses with practiced efficiency. "Pays good, hours are flexible, and I don't ask about past employment." Elena considered her options. Security work meant visibility, but it also meant income and a legitimate reason to stay armed. More importantly, it would give her a reason to stay in one place long enough to establish a proper identity. "Room and board included? Got a cabin out back. Nothing fancy, but it's private." "Deal." Elena extended her hand, and Betty's grip was firm and calloused. "Start tomorrow night. Fair warning though, those boys that just left? They'll be back with friends. This territory's been heating up lately." As if summoned by her words, Jake Connor appeared at Elena's elbow. Up close, she could see the weathered lines around his eyes, the careful way he moved that spoke of old injuries and hard experience. "Ma'am," he touched the brim of his hat. "Jake Connor. Couldn't help but notice you handled yourself well back there." Elena kept her expression neutral. "I didn't do anything. Sometimes not doing anything is the smartest thing you can do." His smile was genuine, but his eyes remained watchful. "You new to Kepler Station?" "Passing through. Might be passing through at an interesting time. Territory's been having trouble with claim jumpers, pirates, and, now apparently fake federal agents. Peaceful place like this needs all the steady hands it can get." There was something in his tone that made Elena study his face more carefully. He wasn't just making conversation. Marshal or not, Jake Connor was taking her measure, trying to figure out if she was another problem or potentially part of the solution. "I'm just looking for quiet work and a place to keep my head down," she said finally. "Sometimes quiet work finds you whether you want it or not." He glanced toward the door where the fake agents had exited. "Especially when you're good at it." Betty interrupted their conversation. "Elena here just signed on for security. Maybe you two should coordinate." Jake's eyebrows rose slightly. "Elena, is it? That's a pretty name." Elena felt heat rise in her cheeks and cursed her body's betrayal. 3 years of running from the Federation's best hunters, and a frontier marshal with kind eyes was making her blush like a schoolgirl. "It's just Elena," she said curtly. "Just Elena it is." His smile widened, and she caught a glimpse of the charm that probably made him effective at his job. "Well, just Elena, welcome to Kepler Station. If you need anything, directions, information, or backup when those boys come calling, you know where to find me." He tipped his hat again and walked away, spurs jingling softly against the wooden floor. Elena watched him go, noting the easy confidence in his stride and the way other patrons nodded respectfully as he passed. Betty chuckled. That one's trouble. The marshal? The good kind of trouble. Jake Connor's been keeping the peace out here for 3 years. Before that, nobody lasted more than 6 months in the job. Betty leaned closer, lowering her voice. Word is he used to be something else before he pinned on that badge. Military maybe, or worse. But, whatever he was, he's been good for this place. Elena nodded absently, her attention split between Betty's words and the lingering warmth she'd felt when Jake smiled at her. She couldn't afford distractions, especially not the kind that came with badges and questions about her past. The evening progressed quietly. Elena familiarized herself with the saloon's layout, noted the regulars, and began building mental profiles of potential trouble. Her enhanced senses made the job easier than it should have been, picking up conversations and reading body language that normal humans would miss. Around midnight, as the crowd began to thin, Betty showed her to the cabin out back. It was small but clean, with a bed, a desk, and, most importantly, multiple exit routes. Elena set her bag on the narrow bed and began her nightly routine of checking locks and planning escape routes. She was examining the window latch when movement outside caught her enhanced vision. A figure was moving through the shadows between buildings, too carefully to be a drunk miner heading home. Elena killed the lights and pressed herself against the wall beside the window. Her enhanced hearing picked up soft footsteps, the subtle scrape of metal against leather. Someone was armed and moving with military precision. The footsteps circled her cabin once, then retreated. Elena waited a full 10 minutes before cautiously peering out. The shadows were empty, but she could smell gun oil and fear sweat in the night air. Someone had been watching her. The question was whether it was connected to the fake federal agents from earlier, or if her 3 years of running were finally catching up to her. She settled into the room's single chair, positioning herself with a clear view of both the door and window. Sleep would have to wait. Elena had learned the hard way that the first night in a new place was always the most dangerous. Outside, Kepler Station settled into the quiet rhythms of frontier nightlife. But Elena's enhanced hearing caught sounds that normal humans would miss: the whisper of fabric against wood, the soft click of a weapon being checked, the nearly inaudible rustle of someone trying very hard to move silently. She was definitely being watched. The only question now was by whom, and how long she had before they made their move. Elena checked her sidearm one more time and settled in to wait. She'd run from her history across half the galaxy, but something told her that her running days might be coming to an end. Whether that was good or bad remained to be seen. The night stretched ahead of her, full of shadows and possibilities. In the distance, she could hear the faint sound of Jake Connor's spurs as he made his rounds, a steady rhythm that somehow made the darkness feel a little less threatening. Despite herself, Elena found that sound oddly comforting. She'd spent 3 years trusting no one but herself. Maybe it was time to consider that she didn't have to face whatever was coming alone. Dawn came early on Kepler Station, the twin suns painting the sky in shades of amber and gold. Elena had managed 3 hours of light sleep, her enhanced senses maintaining watch even as she dozed. The sounds of the colony coming to life filtered through her cabin walls: the clang of mining equipment, the rumble of transport vehicles, the voices of workers beginning another day of scratching survival from alien soil. A soft knock at her door brought her fully alert. Her hand found her weapon before her eyes were completely open. "Elena?" "It's Jake. Brought coffee." She hesitated. 3 years of paranoia warred with an unexpected desire to see the marshal's storm-gray eyes again. Cautiously, she opened the door to find Jake Connor holding 2 steaming cups, his expression carefully neutral. "Figured you might not have slept much," he said, offering her one of the cups. "First night in a new place is always rough." Elena accepted the coffee, inhaling the rich aroma. Real coffee was a luxury out here, not the synthetic substitute most colonies served. "Thanks. This is good. Betty's got connections. Gets the real stuff shipped in from the agricultural worlds." Jake leaned against her doorframe, close enough that she could smell leather and something uniquely masculine. "Mind if I ask you something?" Her enhanced senses caught the slight tension in his voice, the way his free hand rested near his weapon. Martial or not, Jake Connor was still assessing whether she was a threat. Depends on the question. Those 3 men last night. You sized them up the same way I did, noted their weapons, their stance, their exits. That's not normal civilian behavior. Elena sipped her coffee, buying time. Maybe I've just learned to be careful. Maybe. His gray eyes studied her face. Or maybe you've had training. Military training. The accusation hung between them like smoke. Elena felt her enhanced reflexes coiling, preparing for fight or flight. But something in Jake's tone made her pause. This didn't feel like an interrogation. It felt like recognition. Why does it matter? Because last night after you went to bed, I found 3 sets of footprints around your cabin. Professional surveillance, the kind that leaves minimal trace. Jake's voice dropped lower. Someone's watching you, Elena. Someone with military or law enforcement training. Her blood chilled. 3 years of careful hiding, and she'd been made in less than 24 hours. Who? That's what I'd like to find out. Jake pushed off from the doorframe, his posture shifting to something more businesslike. As marshal of this territory, I've got a responsibility to protect the people under my jurisdiction. That includes you, whether you want it or not. Elena set down her coffee cup, her mind racing through options. She could run again, catch the next transport off-world and hope her watchers weren't ready to move. Or she could stay and fight, but that would mean exposing her enhanced abilities and confirming whatever suspicions people already had. I didn't ask for protection. No, you didn't. But you're getting it anyway. Jake's tone was matter-of-fact, as if he was discussing the weather. Betty tells me you start work tonight. I'll be around. Before Elena could respond, the sound of approaching vehicles cut through the morning air. Jake's expression immediately sharpened, his hand dropping to his weapon. Expecting company? He asked. Elena shook her head, but her enhanced hearing was already picking up details. Multiple vehicles, heavy engines, the metallic clink of weapons being readied. Whatever was coming wasn't a social call. Jake stepped past her into the cabin, positioning himself at the window. 3 hover trucks, military grade. Armed personnel. His voice was calm, but Elena could hear the underlying tension. This is about you, isn't it? She didn't bother denying it. Probably. Care to tell me why a group of heavily armed professionals would be interested in a woman looking for quiet security work? Elena moved to the other window, her enhanced vision tracking the approaching vehicles. A dozen figures in tactical gear, weapons that screamed government issue. Her 3 years of running had just caught up to her. It's complicated. Uncomplicate it. Fast. The vehicles were stopping in front of the saloon, their occupants deploying with military precision. Elena counted weapons, noted positions, calculated odds. Even with her enhanced abilities, a straight fight against 12 trained operatives was suicide. I used to work for the Federation, she said quietly. Enhanced Soldier Program. Black Ops. Jake's sharp intake of breath told her he understood the implications. Enhanced soldiers were legends and nightmares rolled into one, humans modified with experimental technology to create perfect weapons. The program had been officially discontinued 3 years ago amid scandals and cover-ups. What happened? I found out what they were really using us for. Not protecting humanity, controlling it. Elena's enhanced vision tracked movement as the tactical team began surrounding the building. I tried to expose the program. Instead, they declared me rogue and ordered my termination. So you ran. So I ran. She turned from the window to meet his eyes. 3 years across 16 worlds, and they finally found me. Jake was quiet for a moment, processing this information. Elena waited for him to step back, to decide that protecting a rogue enhanced soldier wasn't worth the risk. Instead, he surprised her. How many of them are out there? 12 that I can see. Probably more in reserve. Elena's enhanced hearing picked up radio chatter from the tactical team. Professional hunters, Federation Retrieval Division. They're not here to arrest me. They're here to eliminate a problem. Jake's tone was grim but determined. Well, they're about to discover that Kepler Station doesn't give up its own without a fight. Elena stared at him. You don't understand. These aren't corrupt colonial officials. They're Federation Black Ops. They have authority to level this entire colony if they think I'm a threat to national security. Maybe. But they're in my territory now, and they didn't bother to check in with local law enforcement. Jake's smile was cold as winter starlight. That's a violation of colonial law. Gives me all the excuse I need. Before Elena could protest, Jake was speaking into his comm unit. Betty, we've got unfriendlies surrounding the saloon. Clear the building and activate the emergency protocols. This is not a drill. Elena's enhanced hearing caught Betty's response and the sounds of rapid movement from the main building. Whatever emergency protocols meant, the colonists were taking them seriously. You need to get out of here, Elena said urgently. This isn't your fight. Like hell it isn't. Jake checked his weapon, an old-fashioned revolver that looked like it belonged in a museum. I took an oath to protect the people in this territory. That includes you. I'm not worth dying for. Jake's storm gray eyes met hers, and Elena saw something there that made her breath catch. Not just duty or professional obligation, but something deeper and more personal. Let me be the judge of that. Movement outside caught their attention. The tactical team was advancing on the cabin, their leader speaking into a comm unit. Elena's enhanced hearing picked up fragments of the conversation. Target confirmed, proceeding with retrieval, authorization to use lethal force. They're coming, she said. Jake nodded, his demeanor shifting into something Elena recognized from her own military training. He was a soldier too, she realized. Whatever his background, Jake Connor had seen combat before. Back door, he asked. Leads to an alley behind the mining equipment yard. Good. We move fast and quiet. Once we're clear of the immediate area, we can figure out a longer-term solution. Elena grabbed her bag and weapon, but paused at the door. Jake, you need to know something. I'm not just enhanced. I'm more enhanced than the official records show. He looked at her questioningly. Experimental modifications. Enhanced reflexes, hearing, vision. Strength and speed beyond baseline human. I'm essentially a living weapon. Instead of fear or revulsion, Jake's expression showed only grim satisfaction. Good. We're going to need every advantage we can get. They slipped out the back door into the narrow alley behind Elena's cabin. The morning air was crisp, carrying the scents of metal and machine oil from the nearby mining equipment. Elena's enhanced senses immediately catalogued their surroundings, escape routes, potential cover, approaching threats. Movement, 2 o'clock, she whispered, her enhanced hearing picking up the soft footfalls of tactical boots on hard-packed dirt. Jake nodded, drawing his weapon. How many? 3. Professional spacing, military formation. They pressed against the side of a massive excavation unit, its bulk providing temporary cover. Elena's enhanced vision tracked the approaching operatives through gaps in the equipment. Federation retrieval specialists, she identified quietly. Enhanced pursuit training, military-grade equipment. They're designed specifically to hunt people like me. People like you, or you specifically? Elena's smile was bitter. Me specifically. I know too much about the enhanced soldier program. The Federation can't risk me exposing what they did to us. A hand signal from Jake indicated he was ready to move. They began working their way through the mining equipment yard, using the massive machines as cover. Elena's enhanced senses guided their path, steering them away from patrols and surveillance positions. They were halfway across the yard when Elena's enhanced hearing caught a familiar voice over the comm chatter. Colonel Marcus Chen, Federation Retrieval Division. I have authorization to retrieve the rogue asset designated Elena 779. Elena's blood turned to ice. Chen had been her commanding officer in the enhanced soldier program, the man who had turned her into a living weapon. He was also the one who had ordered her termination when she tried to expose the program's true purpose. You know him, Jake observed, reading her expression. He made me what I am. And he's here to unmake me. Jake's jaw tightened. Not if I have anything to say about it. They reached the edge of the equipment yard, where the industrial area gave way to residential buildings. Elena's enhanced vision swept the area, noting positions and movement patterns. 6 more operatives positioned around the residential sector, she reported. They're herding us toward the main street. Into a kill zone, Jake concluded grimly. Elena nodded. Chen was using classic pursuit tactics, driving his target toward a predetermined location where he could control the engagement. It was textbook Federation strategy, and Elena had helped develop some of those tactics herself. We need to break their pattern, she said. Do something they won't expect? What do you suggest? Elena's enhanced mind was already working through possibilities. Her modifications gave her capabilities that normal humans couldn't match, but using them would expose her true nature to Jake and anyone else watching. Trust me? Jake's answer came without hesitation. Yes. Elena felt something warm unfold in her chest at his simple confidence. When had she last trusted someone? When had someone last trusted her? Follow my lead. And, whatever you see, don't be afraid. She moved out from behind their cover, no longer trying to hide or evade. Instead, she walked directly toward the nearest patrol, her enhanced reflexes coiled and ready. The 3 operatives spotted her immediately, weapons rising to target positions. Elena waited until they were committed to their attack pattern, then moved. To normal humans, her motion would have seemed impossibly fast. One moment she was walking toward the patrol, the next she was among them. Enhanced reflexes and speed turned the engagement into a dance of violence that lasted barely 3 seconds. When it was over, 3 Federation operatives lay unconscious in the dirt, their weapons scattered. Elena stood over them, not even breathing hard. Jake emerged from cover, his expression thoughtful rather than shocked. Enhanced reflexes and speed, he said matter-of-factly. Among other things. Elena felt vulnerable admitting her nature, but Jake's steady acceptance made it easier. I'm not entirely human anymore. None of us are entirely what we used to be. Jake's tone was philosophical. Question is, what do we do with what we've become? Elena's enhanced hearing caught the sound of approaching reinforcements. Chen's people had heard the brief engagement and were converging on their position. Right now, we survive, she said pragmatically. They moved quickly through the residential area, Elena's enhanced senses guiding them away from pursuit. But she could hear Chen's voice on the comm channels, adapting his tactics to account for her revealed capabilities. He knows what I can do now, she told Jake as they took cover behind a storage shed. He'll adjust his approach. What's his next move? Elena's enhanced hearing caught the sound of heavy vehicles moving into position. Area denial. He's going to cut off our escape routes and force a confrontation on his terms. How long do we have? Minutes, maybe less. Elena checked her weapon, her enhanced reflexes automatically calculating angles and trajectories. Jake, you still have time to walk away from this. His storm gray eyes met hers, and Elena saw determination that matched her own. I'm not walking anywhere. We're in this together now. The warmth in her chest intensified. When had she stopped being alone? Elena's enhanced hearing picked up Chen's voice on the comm channels, closer now. Elena 779, I know you can hear me. Surrender now, and I'll make this quick. Continue to resist, and I'll level this entire colony to get to you. Jake's expression darkened. He's bluffing. Elena shook her head. Chen doesn't bluff. He has the authority and the firepower to carry out that threat. The sound of approaching vehicles grew louder. Elena's enhanced vision tracked multiple heat signatures converging on their position. Chen was implementing a classic encirclement pattern, sealing off escape routes and preparing for a final assault. Elena, Jake's voice was quiet but firm. Whatever happens next, I want you to know something. I'm glad you came to Kepler Station. I'm glad you trusted me. She looked at him, this frontier marshal who had chosen to stand with her against impossible odds. Jake! Elena 779, Chen's voice echoed across the colony from external speakers. You have 60 seconds to surrender before I authorize lethal force against all colonial personnel. Elena's enhanced mind raced through options, but they all led to the same conclusion. Chen had her trapped, and he was willing to kill innocent people to eliminate her. There was only one way to save Kepler Station and the people she'd come to care about in less than a day. She would have to surrender and face whatever fate the Federation had planned for her. But, as she prepared to make that sacrifice, Jake Connor's hand found hers, steady and warm and completely unafraid. Together, he said simply. Elena looked at this man who had chosen to stand with her, who had risked everything for a stranger with a dangerous past. Her 3 years of running alone were over, but perhaps that wasn't the tragedy she thought it would be. Perhaps it was the beginning of something else entirely. Together, she agreed, squeezing his hand. Around them, the net was closing. But, for the first time in 3 years, Elena Martinez wasn't facing the darkness alone. Elena's enhanced hearing caught the subtle change in Chen's tactical communications. 60 seconds had become 40, then 30. The Federation forces were moving into final positions, heavy weapons trained on their hiding spot behind the storage shed. Elena, Jake's voice was calm despite their circumstances. I need to tell you something before this goes any further. She looked at him, noting the way his hand rested with practiced ease on his weapon, the military bearing he couldn't quite hide even in civilian clothes. Jake Connor isn't my real name, he continued quietly. It's Jake Sullivan, former Federation Special Forces, 42nd Reconnaissance Battalion. Elena's enhanced reflexes nearly brought her weapon up before her conscious mind processed what he'd said. Federation Special Forces. Discharged under suspicious circumstances 3 years ago. Seems I asked too many questions about a classified program involving human enhancement experiments. His storm gray eyes met hers steadily. Ring any bells? The timeline clicked into place in Elena's enhanced mind. 3 years ago, when the Enhanced Soldier program had been officially discontinued. When several military personnel had been quietly transferred or discharged for asking inconvenient questions. You investigated the program. I was supposed to provide security oversight for a facility on Kepler 7. Instead, I found evidence of illegal human experimentation, memory modification, and, worse. Jake's voice carried the weight of old pain. When I reported it up the chain of command, I was told to forget what I'd seen. When I refused, I was drummed out with a falsified psychiatric evaluation. Elena stared at him. The facility on Kepler 7. That's where they held us between missions. I know. I saw the records, Elena. I know what they did to you and the others. 20 seconds on Chen's countdown. Elena's enhanced hearing tracked the final positioning of Federation forces around their location. But her attention was focused entirely on Jake's revelation. Why didn't you tell me? Because 3 years ago, I was just a mid-level officer with suspicions and no proof. I couldn't stop what happened to you then. Jake's hand found hers again, steady and warm. But I can stand with you now. 10 seconds. Elena's enhanced mind processed their tactical situation with cold military precision. 12 Federation operatives in assault positions, heavy weapons, escape routes sealed. By any reasonable analysis, their situation was hopeless. But Elena Martinez had never been reasonable. And Jake Sullivan, apparently, shared that particular character flaw. Chen, Elena called out, her enhanced voice carrying clearly across the colony. I'm coming out. Elena, no, Jake protested. She squeezed his hand. Trust me. Please. Elena stood slowly, hands visible but not raised in surrender. Her enhanced senses tracked 12 weapons targeting her as she stepped out from behind the storage shed. Colonel Marcus Chen stood 50 meters away, flanked by 2 operatives in full tactical gear. He was exactly as Elena remembered, cold eyes and a face that never showed emotion, the kind of man who could order atrocities and sleep soundly afterward. Elena 779, Chen's voice carried the authority of someone accustomed to absolute obedience. 3 years of chasing you across 16 worlds. You've been expensive. I prefer Elena Martinez these days, she replied, her enhanced senses cataloging every detail of the Federation deployment. And, expense is relative when you're covering up war crimes. Chen's smile was thin and humorless. War crimes. Such dramatic language. We prefer necessary research for the defense of humanity. Necessary research. Elena's enhanced voice carried clearly across the silent colony. She was speaking not just to Chen, but to his operatives, to the colonists listening from behind closed doors, to anyone who might be recording this confrontation. Is that what you called it when you erased our memories? When you turned us into programmable weapons? Classified experiments conducted under proper military authority. Chen gestured, and his operatives raised their weapons to firing position. Authority you violated when you stole classified materials and fled Federation jurisdiction. Elena's enhanced hearing caught something Chen had missed, the soft scrape of metal against stone from multiple positions around the colony. Jake's emergency protocols were more than just evacuation procedures. I didn't steal anything, Elena said, taking a careful step forward. I copied evidence of illegal human experimentation. Evidence of Federation officials using enhanced soldiers to assassinate political dissidents and independent journalists. Chen's cold composure cracked slightly. That information is classified at the highest levels. Not anymore. Elena's enhanced reflexes exploded into motion as she dove sideways, shouting now. Jake emerged from cover with his weapon drawn, but he wasn't alone. A dozen colonists appeared from concealed positions around the area, weapons trained on Chen's operatives. Betty was among them, a military-grade rifle in her scarred hands. The young miner from the previous night held a plasma cutter modified for combat use. Frontier colonies learn to take care of themselves, Jake called out, his weapon steady on Chen. Federation forces are outnumbered and surrounded. Elena's enhanced senses tracked the sudden shift in tactical advantage. Chen's operatives were professionals, but they were designed for hunting single targets, not engaging in colonial warfare against entrenched defenders. This is a Federation operation, Chen's voice was sharp with authority and growing concern. Interference with federal agents is a capital offense. Funny thing about capital offenses, Betty's voice carried across the standoff, calm and matter of fact. Hard to prosecute when there's no one left to file charges. Elena could see Chen's mind working, calculating odds and options. His operatives were skilled, but colonial miners worked with industrial equipment that could be rapidly converted into devastating weapons. The tactical situation had shifted from a simple retrieval operation to a potential massacre. You're protecting a rogue enhanced soldier, Chen said, his weapon trained on Elena. She's a weapon of mass destruction. She's a person, Jake's voice was steady as stone. And she's under the protection of the Kepler Station colonial government. Elena felt something warm and fierce unfold in her chest. These people barely knew her, but they were willing to fight the Federation to protect her. It was more loyalty than she'd experienced in 3 years of running. Chen, Elena called out, your operatives are downloading everything right now. Chen's head snapped toward her. What? Elena's enhanced vision tracked the subtle movement of several colonists with military-grade communication equipment. While you were focused on me, they've been copying all your tactical communications, including your authorization codes and mission parameters. The color drained from Chen's face as he realized what she meant. Federation operations relied on absolute secrecy. If the details of this mission became public knowledge, it would expose not just the enhanced soldier program, but the ongoing assassination operations Elena had discovered. Real-time transmission to 16 independent news networks, Betty added helpfully. Amazing what frontier colonies can accomplish when we put our minds to it. Chen's weapon swung toward the communications equipment, but Jake's voice stopped him cold. I wouldn't. That equipment is operated by colonial civilians under my protection. Firing on them would be an act of war against an independent world government. Elena watched Chen's face as he processed the impossible situation. His operatives were outnumbered and outgunned. His mission was compromised and being broadcast across human space. And any aggressive action would trigger a colonial war that the Federation couldn't afford. "You can't run forever, Elena 779, Chen said finally, his voice tight with frustrated rage. "I don't plan to run." Elena stepped forward, her enhanced senses tracking the weapons still trained on her. "I plan to testify." Chen's eyes widened slightly as he understood the implication. "The Independent Colonial Alliance has been looking for evidence of Federation overreach," Jake added. Elena's testimony, combined with the records she copied and your own mission recordings, should provide quite a comprehensive case. Elena watched Chen calculate the cost of killing her now versus the cost of letting her live to testify. Either choice spelled the end of his career and, possibly, his freedom. "The Federation doesn't negotiate with terrorists," Chen said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Good thing we're not terrorists," Elena replied. "We're witnesses." For a long moment, the standoff held. 12 Federation operatives facing 20 armed colonists, with the fate of the enhanced soldier program hanging in the balance. Elena's enhanced senses tracked heart rates, breathing patterns, the subtle tensions that preceded violence. Then, Chen slowly lowered his weapon. "Stand down," he ordered his operatives. "Mission parameters have changed." Elena felt the collective exhale of relief from the colonists around her. But she kept her enhanced reflexes ready. Chen wasn't done yet. "This isn't over, Elena 779, Chen said as his operatives began withdrawing to their vehicles. "The Federation has a long memory." "So do I," Elena replied. "And now everyone else will too." Chen and his operatives withdrew to their vehicles and lifted off, leaving Kepler Station in the settling dust of their departure. Elena stood in the middle of the colony square, surrounded by armed colonists who had risked everything to protect a stranger. "Is it really over?" the young miner asked, still clutching his modified plasma cutter. Elena looked around at the faces of people who had become her allies in less than 24 hours. "The immediate threat is over." But Chen was right about one thing: the Federation has a long memory. They'll try other approaches. "Let them try," Betty said grimly. "Kepler Station doesn't abandon its own." Jake approached Elena, holstering his weapon but keeping his eyes on the horizon where Chen's vehicles had disappeared. "The question now is what you want to do next." Elena considered her options. For 3 years, she'd been running from her past, trying to disappear into the vast expanse of human space. But running had only delayed the inevitable confrontation. Now, for the first time, she had evidence, witnesses, and allies willing to help her take the fight to her enemies. "I want to testify," she said firmly. "I want the truth about the enhanced soldier program to be public knowledge." "That's going to be dangerous," Jake warned. "The Federation won't give up easily." Elena looked at him, this former Special Forces officer who had sacrificed his career to investigate the same program that had destroyed her life. This frontier marshal who had chosen to stand with her against impossible odds. "Then, it's good that I won't be doing it alone." Jake's storm gray eyes met hers, and Elena saw the same determination that had carried her through 3 years of running. But now it wasn't desperation driving her. It was hope. "Together," he asked, echoing their earlier promise. "Together," she confirmed. Betty cleared her throat. "If you two are done making eyes at each other, we've got practical matters to discuss. The Colonial Alliance needs to hear Elena's testimony, but getting her there safely is going to require some planning." Elena blushed, realizing how she and Jake must look to the assembled colonists. But the warmth in her chest wasn't embarrassment. It was belonging, the feeling of having found something she hadn't even known she was looking for. Over the following hours, Kepler Station transformed from a quiet mining colony into the headquarters of a brewing revolution. Elena's testimony and Chen's intercepted communications spread across the colonial networks, sparking outrage and demands for justice. The enhanced soldier program's victims began coming forward, soldiers who had been used as assassins and, then, discarded, researchers who had been silenced when they tried to expose the truth, families whose loved ones had disappeared into classified experiments. Elena found herself at the center of it all, no longer running from her past but embracing it as the foundation for a better future. The isolation of 3 years of hiding was replaced by the warmth of community, of people who accepted her enhanced nature and valued her courage. And, through it all, Jake Sullivan, former Special Forces officer, current Frontier Marshal, and, now her partner in every sense that mattered, stood beside her. 6 months later, Elena Martinez testified before the Independent Colonial Alliance Tribunal. Her words, carried live across human space, brought down the Enhanced Soldier Program and exposed a network of Federation corruption that reached the highest levels of government. Colonel Marcus Chen and 17 other officers were convicted of war crimes. The Enhanced Soldier Program was officially disbanded, its remaining subjects given full pardons and compensation for their suffering. Elena could have gone anywhere after her testimony. The Colonial Alliance offered her citizenship on any world she chose, a new identity, and a comfortable pension. She chose instead to return to Kepler Station, to the small frontier colony that had stood up to the Federation to protect a stranger. She married Jake Sullivan in a ceremony attended by the entire colony, wearing a simple dress that Betty had made from fabric ordered special from the core worlds. Her wedding ring was fashioned from metal mined from Kepler Station's own asteroids, a symbol of the home she had found among the stars. They built a life together on the frontier, using Elena's enhanced abilities and Jake's investigative skills to help other colonies that face threats from criminal organizations or corrupt officials. Elena's enhanced senses made her an exceptional tracker and security specialist, while Jake's understanding of Federation procedures made him invaluable in legal and political negotiations. But their greatest satisfaction came from the quiet moments, mornings on the porch of their expanded cabin, watching Kepler Station's twin suns rise over the red desert, evenings in Betty's saloon, surrounded by the laughter and companionship of people who had become family, nights together, no longer alone in the vast darkness of space. Elena had spent 3 years running from her history, believing that her enhanced nature made her a monster, a weapon that could never find peace or belonging among normal humans. Instead, she had discovered that her history, even the painful parts, had made her who she was meant to be. A protector. A witness. A woman who had found love in the most unexpected place, with a man brave enough to risk everything for justice. She had run from her history, but, in the end, her history had led her home. One evening, as Elena and Jake sat watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant shades of gold and crimson, Betty approached with a message tablet. "Communication from the core worlds," she said, settling into a chair beside them. "Seems there's another situation brewing. Colonial world called New Meridia is having trouble with pirates who seem to have Federation equipment and training." Elena and Jake exchanged glances. They had built a good life on Kepler Station, but the galaxy was full of people who needed help, and they had skills that could make a difference. Pirates with Federation training, Jake mused. Sounds like some of Chen's people might have gone freelance after the trials. Elena's enhanced hearing caught the distant sound of a transport approaching Kepler Station, bringing new arrivals to the growing colony. The frontier was expanding, families and individuals seeking the kind of freedom and opportunity that places like Kepler Station represented. "What do you think?" Jake asked, his hand finding hers in the gathering twilight. Elena looked out over the colony that had become her home, at the people who had risked everything to protect her, at the man who had chosen to stand with her against the darkness. Her running days were over. But her fighting days, fighting for justice, for the innocent, for the idea that even enhanced humans deserved a place in the galaxy, those were just beginning. "I think," Elena said, squeezing Jake's hand, "that New Meridia could use some help." Jake's smile was warm as the setting suns. "Together?" Elena's answer came without hesitation, carrying all the certainty of a woman who had finally found where she belonged. "Always together." Above them, the first stars were beginning to appear in the darkening sky. Somewhere out there, people needed help. Somewhere out there, injustice waited to be challenged. And, somewhere out there, the next chapter of their story was waiting to be written. Elena Martinez had stopped running from her history. Now she was ready to write a new one choice at a time, one fight at a time, one victory at a time. With Jake Sullivan beside her, and the strength of human determination in her enhanced heart, she was ready for whatever the galaxy might bring. The frontier was vast, full of dangers and possibilities. But Elena was no longer facing it alone. She had found her home, her family, her purpose. She had found her place among the stars.